Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is ServiceNow's Safe Workplace Academy for vaccinations and testing. Today we'll be doing a brief presentation followed by an actual demo. We'll be using our recent Rome release as well as our Employee Center Pro portal. Please note that this is not a requirement for using Safe Workplace vaccination status or testing status. We're simply wanting to showcase our latest and greatest technology. So with me today, I have a few colleagues. Ezra Walgraf, the Safe Workplace product manager. I have Peter Bell, one of our senior software engineers, and I have Allison French, my peer on the outbound product management product success team for ServiceNow. They'll be answering your questions. Please put any questions that you have in the Q&A panel at the bottom. Do not use the chat for questions if you can avoid it. That way we can better manage all the questions coming in. After this webinar is over, we'll be doing two things. We'll be posting the video up on YouTube, as well as adding the video, the presentation that I'll show here momentarily, and as well as the any Q&A questions in an FAQ on our ServiceNow community under the COVID-19 resources. So I hopefully you're in the right place. We love having you here, and we're going to talk again about vaccinations and testing in a COVID world. Hopefully this doesn't last much longer, but we do know that it's important as we're thinking about bringing employees back to work, as we're looking at keeping everyone safe, that we have testing capabilities and protocols in place. And so we'll talk a little bit about the configuration, the best practices, and what you can do for your employees, as well as how to administer your vaccination status. So what's an academy session? Well, these sessions are for you. Obviously, we want you to ask questions. We want you to interact. It won't be just a presentation. We'll actually be in the product and doing configuration live. I have done some minimum pre-configuration just to sort of facilitate and expedite the presentation. Where I've done this, I'll let you know, and we can talk about a little bit about kind of what was done and why it was done, as well as the how. And then we're also looking at what future topics can we have in this space. So your questions coming into the community, the conversations we're having with our different customers, and we're looking at those and saying, does this require an academy? Will that be helpful to our customers, to our partners? Again, I'm Rue Adams. Ezra, Allison, and Peter are shown on the screen here. They'll all be helping and assisting. If there's any issues today or any major points that need to be made, they'll chime in as well and kind of help us facilitate and move the presentation forward. We're going to cover an overview of vaccinations. We're going to talk about exemptions. We'll talk about COVID testing. We'll talk about health status. All of these are related in some way and are configurable, of course, as is most of our ServiceNow portfolio of applications, and you can set them up in a way that makes sense for your business. And we'll talk a little bit about what those considerations are. We'll talk a little bit about some of the gotchas. I will make some errors today, and some of them I promise will be intentional as we go through, because I want to show sort of some real-time troubleshooting in some areas where we know that some of our customers are getting stuck. So companies, right, the regulations are changing. Some of your employees are remote, some of them may be back in the office. You know, you need to think about the future and what does a hybrid working environment look like. Will you have employees coming back, you know, to the office full-time, part-time? You know, so all of this requires a lot of thinking, a lot of configuration, right? A lot of record tracking. So you know, is your employee vaccinated? Has that vaccination been verified? Have they requested an exemption? How long will you let them be exempt before you require either another notice that they still want to be exempt, or make something, make a different policy. And then if you do have unvaccinated employees, are you going to allow them back in the office if they've been tested? Do you have a protocol if they test positive? Do you set it up so that they can't come back in the office for a couple weeks or a month or something like that? I have a friend. They had a child, went to school, child got exposed to COVID, doesn't have COVID from the testing, but the school said, hey, we're basically taking any of these children who have been exposed, and we're saying they can't come back to school for 1 month. So they have to do 1 month of online education. So this is real world, and we're going to show you some of the real world capabilities. So for the employees, right, they want to report vaccinations, they want to request exemptions, they want to report test results, they might want to check their health status, have they been cleared, right, based on what they've told you, can they come back in the office. For the administrators, they want to configure properties. Obviously, they need to collect the information from the employees. They likely need to verify the information. They may want to evaluate results. How many of our employees have been tested? How many of our employees have reported vaccinations and been cleared? So that information, all of that is required of the admin and valuable to them. So quickly, some basics just for the people who are going to get this deck and want to look through it quickly. We have a couple roles, and we'll talk a little bit about groups and setting up groups as well. But you have the health test admin role and the vaccine admin role for admins. And for the employees, you have the privacy consent user role. On the admin role, I just want to mention, today I'll be doing this all as a system administrator, and I've given the system administrator these two roles. This is a scoped app. So if you wanted to set up a group of vaccine administrators specifically, you can do so and give them these two roles and not give the system administrator the roles. This may be a privacy consideration. So you can assign those roles differently because of the scoped app, and you can remove the roles from system admin. You'd want to set up your privacy consents. This is kind of a basic fundamental piece of this functionality, which is we want the employees to say, yes, I'm giving you this information. It's okay for you to have it. I'm not giving you all my HIPAA. I'm just giving you, the right to basically know that I have a vaccine and I'm clear. You'll need to send an outreach, right, to all of these employees. We'll talk a little bit about sending outreaches. You can set up a safe workplace audience or audiences by adding individuals or groups. And then you can view your outreaches, and you can send or resend notifications to your audiences. For example, if you have additional employees who have just joined, you have a number of new hires, you might want to resend a notification to get to those new hires and have them also go up into the portal, accept the privacy statement, and provide and they may want to then provide their vaccination information or their testing status. We'll also have to turn on some requirements. You'll want to go to health safety requirements. You want to make sure your COVID-19 vaccine requirement is there. You want to show that your testing requirement is active. And then we'll also want to show record producers on our employee center, right? So the employee might want to type in, report vaccination. Obviously, you want that form to come up. And so we'll go through that as well as part of our demo. There are additional resources beyond this Academy session. You can get the actual suite of safe workplace apps at store.servicenow.com. There is installation guidance at our product documentation site, docs.servicenow.com. And in our Now Create site at Now Learning, you can get a Safe Workplace Vaccination Status Deployment Guide. Also, I do want to say, please engage with the community. We have a lot of questions there and answers. We also post best practices and information, FAQs, Q&A, that you can then find on the forum, COVID-19 resources at community.servicenow.com. And a little plug for our academies. We have academies for mobile app, performance analytics, virtual agent. We also have an HRSD academy. So if you have any interest in those topics, there are other academy sessions that you can join as well. So now I'm actually going to go in and start doing some demo, right? So again, just some basic configuration has been done. We're going to start here with the administrator in the platform and basically the home dashboard. We'll start here and then we'll go into users and roles, right? So the first thing I want to show is users. So if I go to the system administrator and look at their roles, right, you'll see that I've given them the system roles that they need for safe workplace, for vaccines, as well as for health testing. So in this case, I've added those roles directly to the system administrator user, and that way the system administrator can do all the vaccine administration work that needs to happen. For the groups, for the employees, I've actually created a group specifically for this session called Academy Users. When I go here, you'll see that I've added some employees. And I've added the role privacy consent user. Now, I think when I look here, there is one employee who's a new hire that I need to add for my demo today. And so I am going to go find her. It's Yvette. And I'm going to add Yvette. Now, Yvette is now one of the employees in my Academy users group. So simply a group that I've created, users added to that group, and the one role that we need for vaccine and health testing. So the one thing you'll also need to note is that for every one of these users, we need a health and safety user profile. So I am going to make sure that we have a health and safety user profile. All right, so I've added a number of employees, including Yvette. Yvette actually has a health and safety user profile because I added that directly and manually. There is a scheduled job that runs. So as you send out notifications to groups of employees, a health and safety user profile will be added, but that's a scheduled job, and it can either be manually triggered, or you can manually add it, or you can simply wait for the scheduled job to run and create the health and safety user profile. Okay, so we have a couple things here that we need to also do if we're going to do vaccination status reporting. One of those is to make sure that we have a vaccine definition, right? So vaccine response definitions are where you basically add the vaccine, the manufacturer, is it 1 dose or 2 doses? I added Pfizer this morning. Very quickly, you'll see that we also out of the box ship some additional vaccine response definitions for unknown manufacturers 2 dose, unknown manufacturer 1 dose, other manufacturer 1 and 2 dose. Today, I'm actually going to add Moderna. So I know that some of our employees are getting the Moderna vaccine. So I'm going to have Moderna COVID-19 2 dose. And the number of doses required is 2. And when I enter this, you'll also see that an automatically number of days between doses. And so the system is set up to default to 28. And if there's ever a vaccine that has a different number of days between doses, you can set that up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. So now you'll see I have Pfizer and Moderna also added in here for any employees reporting against those 2 vaccines. If I need to set up Johnson & Johnson, I can do so. If I need to do a booster, right, you can also see that we can set up booster vaccines. I won't be doing that in today's demo, but the capability is there. You can associate it with, let's say, the Pfizer vaccine or have a Pfizer booster, and you can set some properties around that so that employees are reminded after a certain period of time that they need to go get their booster. So the other thing I want to make sure we do is that we set up our location privacy configuration. So this is a requirement to ensure that we can get the information for each employee based on their location, and then we can set some different variables around that for how long we retain the information. So let me go to our health and safety users and location privacy configuration. And simply there's a button here that says generate location configurations. This will generate location configurations for both the health testing status, right? Do we have a testing consent template? And do we have a vaccine administration template that's ready for each of these locations? And that generated very quickly. I had done this before. So it has information for each country. And then if I needed to change, right, the consent information for any of these countries, I can go into the record and I can do so. So if a country doesn't have a privacy consent requirement, I can remove that. I can use different templates for each different location. So this is a capability, again, to do a little more customization based on location. So I have all the locations set. I have the vaccine definition done, and now I can go in and look at my outreaches, right? So we need to communicate to our employees that we need them to report, basically whether or not they've gotten the vaccine or what their latest test result is. So right now, I've actually already created a couple of these emergency outreaches. I'm just going to show the vaccine privacy consent that we've done. We'll talk through this a little bit, right? So if you create a new one, you'd want to say when should this run? Should it be a scheduled job, or can I trigger this manually? You'll want to define a safe workplace audience. In this case, I have a vaccine privacy consent audience. We'll look at that audience here momentarily, but again, you'll have your audience for vaccine consent, and then you might have some content that you want to configure as part of this outreach. So here we have a notification. We can set this up with your specific company information, and you can basically determine what message you want to send out to these employees. So if I look at the audience, you'll see I have my vaccine privacy consent audience. The audience itself, there's one user in this audience, the system administrator. Then I use the group that we had set up earlier, Academy users, and they're basically the target audience for any of these communications, right? So I have in here all the Academy users. If I wanted to set conditions, right, I can set different conditions. So I might want to set, well, let's see. I might want to go to my user table and do user privacy. And if I use user privacy, the condition I would set is, hey, consent status is not acknowledged, right? So in this way, I can send this, but if they've already acknowledged the privacy consent, they won't get another notification. So that's how I would, essentially how I would trigger off a notification to anyone who hasn't acknowledged consent status. You can also do this against vaccine profiles. The vaccine profile table, you could do it against the health and safety. So if they've recently reported, right, then you don't need to continue to send them any sort of notifications. So this is configurable again, and it will get the employees the information they need to go do their privacy consent, and then subsequently report, health testing status or vaccination status. So let me actually go ahead, and I want to go back to my outreaches. And I'm going to trigger, right, this vaccine privacy consent, right? Because I do have some new employees, and I want them to get the notification, right? So I just added Yvette. I want her to make sure she gets the notification. So when she logs into her employee center and she wants to report a test result, report a vaccination status, that she'll be prompted to accept the privacy consent. So I'm going to resend the notification here to all of the employees who may be still haven't acknowledged, as well as to any new employees. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the health and safety diagnostic, right? So we have a testing requirement as well. And I'm going to go ahead and resend the notification. So this now will send emails up to those employees, or, right, if the employee logs in to do a report against the record, the privacy consent notification will actually show up, and it will show on the portal, and they'll have to do that first before they can report a test status or a vaccine. Okay, so health and safety requirements, right? So the other thing we need to set up are health and safety requirements. And we have some requirements in here. We have a COVID-19 vaccine requirement that we've set up. We also have a testing requirement that we've set up. And when I open this up, right, I'll open my record. You can see that we have a requirement. The requirement is for the employees. There's a workflow behind this. Our default, it's active, right? So we've made this active. So employees can report their vaccines. The default status is not cleared. So if you haven't gotten your vaccine, then you're not going to be cleared to come into the office or to engage in any business related activities. So this is our profile, our record for the health and safety requirement around vaccine, and we also have one again around testing. So I'm not going to deactivate this. We do want this to be true and active. I could deactivate it at some point in the future. That would be the dream state. But if it's not active, I can activate it and make sure it's ready to go. Again, you can set up different tables and profiles and for this requirement and make sure everybody has what they need to go in and report a vaccine. So the next thing I wanted to do is actually show you what an employee trying to request an exemption might look like. So I have not set up the exemptions. So this employee is going to log in and she is going to have a bit of an issue on the employee center. So I'm going to impersonate Jess Assad. And when I'm Jess Assad, right, and I come up to my portal, right, as Jess, I want to report an exemption. There's no match for exemption. Well, there's a reason for that, right? So one, we haven't turned on exemptions, and we haven't created a record producer to have the request exemption form show up on our employee center. So as the system admin, right, I'm going to come back in here and I am going to go into vaccination properties. And I'm going to allow vaccine exemptions. I have to change my scope, which I did, and now I can set up the vaccine exemptions and save. Okay. There's some additional, right? Some additional things. So you can approve vaccines with an expiration date or exemption request with an expiration date. You can determine how long that until that expiration date is hit. So there's a lot of flexibility in sort of how you can, what you turn on or not, and what you configure. So some companies may decide not to do exemptions. Others may do exemptions, but you have to continually re-up at some regular cadence. So we do try to build some flexibility into all of these capabilities. The other thing I'll say is that as we build these capabilities, as we work through these processes with the number of customers that we already have and the feedback we get, we do have regular releases. There will be another release this week. There will be additional releases in the upcoming weeks. And we do look at things like, you know, vaccine administration and how easy is it to do the admin work on vaccines, and you know, what does the employee experience look like? So we're constantly going back and forth and looking at where can we add the most value. So just a plug that you know, we do listen to the feedback, and we do a regular cadence of releases so that we can be ready and prepared, and you can be ready and prepared for whatever you know, the situation, this dynamic situation brings forward. So we've turned on the vaccine exemptions. The other thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to actually show the record, right? So Jess wants to report, we're going to have to show the record. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into taxonomies, under content taxonomy, and we have an employee taxonomy. And under our employee taxonomy, we have workplace topic, right? So workplace topic is where you'll find the safe workplace records. So if I go into workplace, you'll see I already have two catalog items, right? So report vaccination and report a COVID-19 test diagnostic. So if I went back to the Employee Center, right, and I searched for vaccination, right, I can report a vaccination, and that's because I already have that catalog item showing here on my topic taxonomy. So now we're going to actually add a new one, which is going to be our catalog item. And that catalog item, we want to report exemption. And so now we got a catalog item for request vaccine exemption. And I'll submit that. You'll see it's in my list here at the bottom. So now I can report a vaccination, I can request a vaccine exemption, or I can report a test result. And all of those, because I've updated here, will show up on the Employee Center. So now I'm going to go back to the Employee Center. I'm going to make sure that I'm impersonating Jess again. As I move back and forth between the system admin and the work they do and the employee, I need to kind of do some refresh here to make sure I'm in the right role as I do this. So now Jess wants to report an exemption. Now you can see we have the record for request vaccine exemption. And she actually has a doctor's note. She has a medical condition and she wants to report it. I have, immunodeficiency. And she actually has a note, right? So she's going to add her attachment from her doctor. So she's going to upload that and she's going to submit it. Still not cleared because we haven't approved her request yet, but she does have her submitted exemption request. Now I'm going to impersonate a different employee, Willis Jones. And Willis has a different request around exemptions. So he also wants to report an exemption. Or request one. And his is other. And he says, I have trypanophobia. Trypanophobia is the fear of needles, right? So he's saying, hey, I'm afraid of needles. I'm requesting an exemption. So he has also requested his exemption. As the system admin, right? I want to make sure again that I'm in the system admin role here as I switch back and forth. Even though the ID is cached, it may not be. So I have to kind of do a refresh there. So I've gotten Jess. She's submitted an exemption request. Willis has requested an exemption request. So now I'm going to go look at those exemption requests, and I'm going to type in to my filter navigator vaccine exemption. All right, so I can see all the vaccine exemption requests, and I have two here. So one is from Jess. And I could look at that PDF and see the PDF and say, yes, that's a valid PDF. It's from her doctor. She's good to go. And I can also set an expiration date. So that date may be just someday in the future when we want her to re-up her exemption request. But because I've seen that PDF, right, I'm just going to go ahead and approve. So her exemption has been approved. Willis also submitted one. We know that, yeah, he has a fear of needles, but we don't think that's a valid. So we're going to actually reject Willis's exemption request. So you can see I have one approved and one rejected. So the employees have gone in, they've made their exemption request. The admin has gone into the list and checked. The admin has decided one is approved, one is not, based on the evidence that I have. Again, this is something where you'll need to define your business policy. You'll need to make a determination about, well, what is a valid exemption request? Again, those requests can be out of the box. We've set up medical, religious, and other. So you can make a determination. You can add or remove any of those, and you can determine like what's valid and what evidence do we need to approve or reject those exemption requests. So those are both of our that's exemptions. Now I want to go back and I want to start reporting some vaccinations. Right? So a couple of different employees here that are going to report a vaccination. So one is Abel Tudor. Abel wants to report a vaccination. And again, I haven't built any shortcuts to these. They're all discoverable through the catalog. They're discoverable through search. I'm just using search. It's how I usually engage with the employee portal at ServiceNow. So he doesn't have any, Abel doesn't have any previous doses. He's going to say, yes, I do have a vaccine dose. I did get, he said, I got a 2-dose from another manufacturer. He wants to report both doses, right? So he's going to say his first dose was back in mid-August. And his second dose was about a month later. And he thinks by this time, he was going to report these. He thinks by this time he should be cleared. He's going to add an attachment as well because he wants to show the evidence. And Able Vax, here I have a file. And he's going to submit this as a vaccination request. Okay, and so he submitted a vaccination request. We've set it up. He's actually showing us cleared now in his health and safety status, which we've also set up a link here at the top of the screen for My Safe Workplace. And you can see that in My Safe Workplace, he's showing with a cleared status. You can also add some additional widgets and have a place where employees can go and see, like, can I come in? Am I cleared to come in? And then I can make a reservation. Potentially, if I have those capabilities set up, I can make a reservation for a place to sit in the office. The other person that I'm going to have submit is Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln is also going to submit and report his vaccination status. Oh, he wants to report a vaccination. He knows who he is. So Abraham is also reporting. He's going to go ahead and report a vaccination, and he got Moderna. Thankfully, we set that up earlier in our demo. He's going to report both doses. His doses happened some time ago. The company has just asked. So I think he had a dose the end of April or near the end of April. And there was a second dose that happened a month later. All right, so he also has an attachment because he wants to show evidence. And this will be this will come to light here in a second when I actually go do the admin and look at the doses and the vaccine profiles for these two employees, why this is important. So Abe also has submitted or is submitting his vaccine. Hopefully that will submit here momentarily. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back, make sure I'm the system administrator again. In this role, I can go in and look at vaccine responses. All right, so if I type vaccination, I do it correctly, I can see vaccination status, and I have profiles and responses. And any employee who has submitted a vaccine, right, will show up here. So Abraham has submitted and Abel has submitted. So I can look at it through their profile, which I'll do for Abraham. And it says, hey, look, here's my information, right? Here are my I got the Moderna on two different dates, about a month apart. And I've been vaccinated, I'm reporting that. And if I look at the vaccine response through his profile, right, I can see that he's attached a PNG file. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. And this is downloading onto my computer. If you have it set up, you can view certain document types actually in the system without having to download. So I'm actually having a bit of a problem showing Honest Abe's vaccine status here, but his was valid, right? His was valid. So hopefully, all right. So he had a vaccine. He had a couple cards. They were valid cards. I looked at them. They're okay. I'm going to say I've reviewed it and I've approved it, right? So Honest Abe, he's good to go. I'm updating. He's been approved. His COVID vaccine has been completed, right? He's been approved. You can see from the lower right here. He's all good to go. If I go to vaccine responses directly, you can see that I can also look at it through vaccine responses. I can see Abel here, and Abel says he's been vaccinated. And when I look at his, right, I'm going to open it, and he has a record. Well, his image is quite a bit different from Abe's, and hopefully I can pull this up. Oh, it doesn't want to let me pull it up. Okay, so his is actually a picture of puppies. I love puppies, but puppies are not a vaccine, right? No, not for this, not for COVID. So when I look at the picture of puppies, I realize that Abel didn't have any evidence that he's had the vaccine. So I'm going to reject Abel's vaccine report. I'm going to update that. So Abel had claimed that he had the vaccine. If I go to his vaccine profile now and I show Abel Tutor, right? I'm in the user. Hold on, let me get to the record. Okay, so vaccine profile record. He's been rejected. It says he's completed. As the admin, I'm actually going to click off of COVID vaccine completed, and I'm going to update because he hasn't given me any evidence. And you can see that he's been reset to false. And if I go back to the Employee Center and impersonate Abel Tutor again, and click on Mike Safe Workplace, you can see that he's also been reset to he's also been reset to not cleared. So Abel's going to have to go back and actually get a vaccine or come up with the evidence to show that he's been vaccinated. So that's I've now demoed 2 people getting exemption requests submitted. Jess, who was valid, and Willis, who was not. I showed Abel Tudor, who's reported a vaccine that was not a valid vaccine. And I showed Abraham Lincoln, who did give us evidence that he had the Moderna vaccine, and he's been cleared. So if I went to Abraham's profile, right, he's going to show up in his health and safety status again. He's going to show up as cleared. So Jess is cleared and Abraham is cleared. The other thing I want to show now, remember Yvette was a new employee, and Yvette actually, she actually got her notification that said she needed to report. And so when I go to Yvette, she wants to report a test, right? So she went and got a COVID test. And so she wants to report her COVID test. So she's going up to the diagnostic test result. And you remember, so we added her into our group. We had a health and safety status user profile for her that we made sure was created. And we went ahead and we sent out our notification, right? That she needed to come in and do this. That she needed to say that her personal data and collecting this privacy consent was okay. She hasn't agreed to the privacy consent yet, so she'll do that here. She'll do that here now on this page. So she's going to go ahead and agree and submit. And now she needs to go report her COVID test, COVID. Oh, hold on. I'm in a different, let me go back out. All right. So I didn't have it configured, so it was staying in the employee center. Let me go ahead and get to the employee center again and report my COVID test. So I'll do this quickly. This will be the last piece of the demo, and then we're going to just check on your questions. So employee service center. Again, I'm Yvette. I'm going to report my COVID test. All right. Now it doesn't want to do my COVID test. Here we go. Okay. So now this is Yvette is in here. She doesn't have a related test request. She has a negative result, and she was tested. She was tested on Saturday. So Yvette's now submitting her test. And again, going back as the admin in the portal, right? I can see that Yvette has submitted her test results. So I'm going to go to test results, health and safety testing. And I can see Yvette's record here. Open that record. And if there's some verification that I need to do, right, I can do that. If she submitted something, a written notification that she's negative results, I can test that. And then I can choose to go ahead and verify her test and update, and you'll see she's been tested and she's been verified. Allie, on the other hand, hasn't been verified yet. And the system administrator, well, I wouldn't have the system administrator verify their own test, but in this case, the system administrator did their own, just as an example. So we've done 2 exemptions, 2 vaccinations, and we've reported a test result. Now, there's a lot of configuration you can do. You can build dependencies. You can have employees no longer require testing if they've been vaccinated and their vaccination is cleared, or you may decide that you still want them to test. So you can configure that however you feel is most useful to protect your employees and your business. So at this point, Ezra, can I ask you, do we have any? Is there anything else you think we should cover? And do we have any questions that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we've been, thank you, by the way, Rue, for that demonstration. Been answering questions as they come in. One of the things I did want to speak to was regarding any validation using AI or ML. There are some discussions, some investigations in process. Currently, the answer is no, but we might be having something in the near future. If that would get completed, you would see it go out as a blog or a product update, something of that nature. Yeah, the other thing there I would like to say is, we're going through things pretty quickly, just so everybody's kind of aware of a big kind of goal of all this is identifying those kind of target users and everything. If you end up, either kind of rolling out a proof of concept or you're deploying or looking into this product, certainly spend some time in looking at how the Safe Workplace audience and requirements are used. Between the two of those, they will give you the flexibility that you need to identify and notify or apply requirements against the user base that your company's policies regarding their COVID response would apply to.
Yeah, so thanks, Ezra.
No
yeah, so I did cover that quite quickly. Again, this video will be posted onto YouTube and will be posted into our ServiceNow community. So you can probably play it back at a slower speed or pause in between some of the things that I was demonstrating. It's a lot of material to cover, but we were getting a lot of questions about vaccine response, about testing, and about exemptions. We really wanted to take this time to cover this with you to make sure that you felt like you understood what was happening, that you could do some of this configuration work yourself, and that we could highlight some of the resources that are available to you to help and support those efforts. So with that, I think we'll again, any questions that we have and any additional questions that remain unanswered, we're going to be creating an FAQ and posting it into the COVID-19 resources community up on ServiceNow community. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to my colleagues for helping out, answering questions, and we'll see you at the next Academy session. Thanks all. Bye.